World Trade Center. Everybody watched this on TV 100 times. Heard all the stories and all the rumors, but you never know what really happened. Because I have a nuclear physicist background, along with a heat treat specialist, coefficient of expansions, and metallurgy, we have a building that's 1,300 feet tall. Now let's throw an anvil that weighs 500 pounds off the top of the building. How long do you think it's going to take to hit the ground, hit the sidewalk? 12.8 seconds. 12.8 seconds. How long did it take for the World Trade Center to fall down? Anybody know that? 4.8 seconds. And that's compressing all that concrete and steel. What does that say? That says somebody changed gravity, didn't they? Even if the thing was burning out of control, floor by floor by floor, it'd probably take 2 weeks to melt down to the basement. But to accelerate gravity at 3 times its normal speed? Now, I put this presentation on national television in 11 states for an hour with the blessings from physics professors and demolition experts from mining all over the United States. When they saw the presentation privately, they then said, put this on national television because this is the rest of the story that people don't know about. Now, when you core detonate the World Trade Center with C4, now in 1988, I told you I wrote the mathematical procedures to prove that all steel is plastic. Okay, there's a little thing called an iron molecule. And being that I'm a metallurgist, here is a cube. In the center of a cube, below 1650 degrees, you have one nuclei. It's called an iron molecule. When you heat that above 1650 degrees, it becomes what's known as a face center cube molecule, and now you have 6 nuclei. Iron is the only substance in nature that can change its identity. Once it becomes a 6 face-centered cube nuclei, this is now plastic. Red steel. Cherry red steel. Just like plastic. Tie it in knots, beat it with a hammer, make swords out of it. Anything you want. Heat glass at 2200 degrees and it's liquid. Pour it in anything you want, cool it off, you got glass. Take plastic, at room temperature, tie it in knots, you got your plastic bottles, nice and flexible, doesn't break. Cool. Concrete. Pour that concrete block, it's liquid with lime, heated to 1780 degrees. As it cures, 22 minutes later, it turns into plastic. And the chemical reaction becomes epoxy resin. And then in a little less than probably 20 minutes, it turns from epoxy into concrete, and it goes into a center cube, making hard brick. So concrete, steel, and glass are all plastic. They all have a coefficient of expansion of 6.3. Anybody want to guess what the coefficient of your plastic soda water bottle is there? 6.3. That means that anything that's plastic will be affected by C4, plastic explosives. So you core detonate the building with C4 plastic, or thermite, which is a 6.3 also. When it detonates, it creates a bubble, 1,300 feet in diameter. When C4 detonates, it creates a shock wave of 85,000, roughly 85,000 pounds per square inch pressure. All of you that watched the video, this is a 400-foot wide building. The debris field is 850 feet wide above the building when it's still in a static position. Watch the video. The building is standing there and you've got a debris field 550 feet beyond the 400-foot center line. So it's 850 feet in a half second. That's 1,600 feet per second. That's a good acceleration equal to a bullet, or equivalent to a C4 detonation. Every building within a half a mile of the World Trade Center had its windows exploded out at that exact second. And what's the one thing you saw in the air Instantly, when the building was still, when this was going on, what was completely surrounding the building? Paper. Paper was airborne instantly all over the building. How did all that paper get 1,000 feet away from the building in 1 second? Where did it come from? Well, at the exact second of the core detonation of the World Trade Center, what you were looking at was not a concrete, steel, and glass building. What you were looking at was smoke. Not molecules of concrete, steel, and glass, but atoms of concrete, steel, and glass. Paper is not affected by a 6.3 detonation. Only concrete, steel, and glass turn into smoke. And so you've got a static pile here of smoke. Now, has anyone ever seen the hydrogen bomb explosion on Discovery or National Geographic's pictures? And you see little balls. Those balls are called plasma. Plasma is the same thing that causes sunspots on the sun. When a C4 detonation takes place, you have plasma balls that are formed throughout the building. These are electromagnetic eddies that are created. Anything within a plasma ball will not be affected by the 6.3 coefficient of expansion of a C4 detonation, which only affects concrete, steel, and glass. So at this exact second, when this building is exposed to this, you have all these heavy chunks of steel in here, but they're also subject to the change in the gravity well. The gravity well collapses in 4.8 seconds, pulling the entire debris field right into a real nice pile in the basement. One thing that they didn't tell you was there was 8 buildings, 40 stories tall, that surround the World Trade Center that all fell down, that were caught inside the electromagnetic bubble. They weren't on fire, but they all collapsed just the same with the World Trade Center because they were inside the electromagnetic pulse of the C4 detonation. So plastic affected plastic and pulled this whole thing down into a nice, neat pile. Now, if you look at the video, you'll see that here's Long Island, here's the World Trade Center, and here's a big white cloud of asbestos. The entire World Trade Center is insulated with asbestos. 50,000 people a day work in the World Trade Center. 50,000 people for 30 years exposed to asbestos insulation. Anybody want to guess at what the lawsuits would be worth over a 30-year period? In the trillions of dollars against the United States government. Who owns the World Trade Center? New York City Port Authorities. Who owns the New York City Port Authorities? United States Department of Transportation. Who is owned by the United States Postal Service? Who owns the Treasury? Who owns the Pentagon? Who owns the military? Jeez, it's all kind of coming back to roast on the Treasury, on the post office, isn't it? So now you've got this big cloud of asbestos, and 3 million New Yorkers are exposed to raw asbestos that's just been blasted away into real nice fine particles by 85,000 pound per square inch blast wave. Coefficient of expansion of asbestos is not 6.3. It's only blown into a free atmosphere, not into an atom format. So therefore, this here becomes a death trap for everyone exposed. Now, 50,000 people a day work, but only 3,850 people were in the building because everybody was told to stay home. Both planes, when you run the video back and you look at them, did not have windows. They were drones. Where did all the people go that supposedly left Boston? Never heard from again. Out into the Atlantic and ditched. And this was a controlled issue by drones. And we have drone technology. There's over 12,000 drones in Iraq right now. So these things, liars figure. But this little number here,